where we are going and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
Hello, good evening. Happy New Year to you. It's Thursday, the 1st of January. Welcome along to Farage with me. Yeah, it's me again, Ben Leo, on the show tonight. The government's pledge to stop the boats and smash the gangs has been left in absolute tatters as official figures show numbers are up 13% under Labour. So much for smash the gangs, eh? Will 2026, as Mike Tapp attests to, will it be the year that Labour finally gets a grip? Elsewhere, 2025 was characterised by the rise of Reform UK, but do they have what it takes to fix Britain? And I'm asking, although they're steaming ahead in the polls, what will the big challenges be for them over the next couple of years? We'll debate that and more with the thoughts of a political strategist shortly. And across the pond, stateside, Zoran Mamdani has been sworn in as the 111th Mayor of New York City and the city's first Muslim mayor. And also, by the way, the first mayor to take the oath not on a Bible, but with a Quran. What does this mean for America's largest city? And of course, I'll keep you up to date with any developments from the tragic fire in Switzerland throughout the evening. But first, let's get your news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wensler with your headlines. A vigil has been held following a fatal fire at Le Constellation Bar in the Swiss ski resort of Crans, Montana that killed 7 dozen people. The Swiss president gave an update on what he called one of the worst tragedies our country has ever known. Authorities say victims include several nationalities and many were young. Eyewitnesses have told French media that they saw the fire start in the basement section of the club after a bottle containing birthday candles was held up too close to the wooden ceiling. Small boat crossings increased last year despite Sir Keir Starmer's pledge to smash the people smuggling gangs. 41,500 Channel migrants reached Britain in 2025, making it the second busiest year of small boat crossings on record. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has said smash the gangs is a complete disaster. The one-in, one-out deal is a farce, while Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp said only the Conservatives are prepared to do what control requires and leave the ECHR. But the Immigration Minister, Mike Tapp, told GB News he's confident in Labour's new measures.
Inherited open borders. We've seen recently sweeping changes to the immigration system to make it less attractive to come here, easier to deport and remove people, and of course counter-terror powers to take on the smuggling gangs, and I'm confident we'll make progress.
Elsewhere, household bills are set to rise today, while temperatures across the country plummet, with snow expected in some areas. The energy price cap increase comes just as a swathe of cold health alerts have been issued for large areas of the UK. Ofgem says the average household will now pay £1,758 a year for gas and electricity, which is just £3 more than before. To the US now, where Zoran Mamdani has been sworn in as New York City's first Muslim mayor with his hand on a Quran. The self-proclaimed democratic socialist chose a disused Gilded Age subway station at Old City Hall as a nod to the workers who keep modern New York running. The 34-year-old campaigned to create universal childcare, make public buses free and to freeze rents on 1 million apartments. And Enzo Maresca has left his role as Chelsea manager after 18 months in charge. That's according to the Premier League club. The Italian manager's departure had been expected following a breakdown in relations with key figures at Stamford Bridge. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More news in an hour.
Sophia, thanks very much, and Happy New Year to Farage viewers. Unfortunately, you've got me again. Like a good tiramisu or profiteroles over Christmas, you can never get too much of a good thing, eh? Right, let's get a quick update from Switzerland, where the tragedy earlier today has unfolded on a terrible, terrible fire on New Year's Eve. 40 people confirmed to have died and 115 injured after the blaze tore through a crowded bar at the Crans, Montana ski resort. Witnesses say the ceiling caught fire after a bottle with a lit candle sparked flames. Emergency crews rushed victims to hospitals, many from other countries, and the authorities say the blaze appears accidental and a full investigation is underway. And we are still awaiting news if any Brits were caught up in the tragedy, although the authorities say the majority of victims are young people who were at the resort for New Year's Eve, and I'll keep you updated throughout the evening on that. Right, moving on. Keir Starmer's flagship plans to smash the gangs, remember that, and stop the small boats crossings in the English Channel, well, they're in complete tatters if they weren't already. After 41,472 migrants, yes, 41472, they crossed the Channel in 2025 alone. It was the second highest annual figure on record. Last year's figure was 13% higher than 2024 and a massive 41% higher than 2023. The Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, well, she's pledged to further measures to crack down on the crossings, but the big question tonight is there any realistic chance Labour will actually get a grip of the crisis in 2026? And equally as important, will they actually do it? What do they want to do? Because we have all these one in, one out policies. You have the money to France. You have all the, what I argue, are smoke screens about should they be allowed to get buses into towns? Should we give them spending money? I argue it's all nonsense. It's all BS. Stop the boats at source in the first place. Let me know what you think. gbnews.com/your say. And joining me on my panel tonight to discuss this is the Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control, Rob Bates. Rob, good evening. Not sure what your assessment of the last year under Labour is with regards to the small boats crossings, but I'd also like your thoughts on my assessment that all these new policies and these ideas and these debates and the intellectual academic discussion about how to tackle this crisis is becoming a smokescreen because we are forgetting the problem at source, which is flimsy rubber dinghies crossing the English Channel into Britain.
Your assessment was spot on, and I think we've seen a procession of them over the last year as this Labour government has realised that actually its few gimmicks, its plan to smash the gangs, hasn't worked. So we've seen Keir Starmer going over to the Balkans, begging countries to sign a third country processing agreement with them. None of them have been very keen to take him up on that. We, of course, saw the one in, one out deal with France, which has been a complete failure. We've had individuals that were deported, sneaking back in to Britain. And I think actually the data from last year really shows that the crisis has escalated under this Labour government. We saw a record number of asylum claims, 110,000. We saw the cost of the asylum system surge to 5 billion, the equivalent of sort of the tax take of 606,000 hardworking Brits. So their taxes are going to keep these individuals in hotels and to pay for those treats that you allude to. We've also seen the number of small boat migrants being deported actually fall under Labour as well, despite all the tough talk that we do hear from ministers such as Mike Tapp that they're really clamping down on this issue. The number that they are getting rid of and getting out of the country was only about 2,000 in the last 12 months of data. And then, of course, we've also got the fact that the numbers in hotels are going up. So all the data from the last year shows that the Labour Party's grand schemes, it's smash the gangs and so forth, have not worked. And when we're looking forward into 2026, we had in November the asylum plan announced by the Home Secretary. And actually what that will do is effectively grant an amnesty to anyone that comes into the country illegally, give them a pathway towards settlement and citizenship. And then they're also talking about these safe and legal routes, which they're planning to work with a global quango called the UN High Commissioner for Refugees Office, where effectively we will have this international body telling us which individuals we should be taking into the country. So the numbers are likely actually, if anything, to go up over the next 12 months.
Labour say they've deported 35,000 people, Rob. I mean, what are they talking about? Is the discrepancy there because they are voluntary sort of deportations?
Yeah, well, that's a lie, effectively, that they've been promulgating quite a lot. Most of those people that left the country, were removed from the country, did so without the Home Office even knowing. When you actually look at that small slither of individuals who were returned from the country by means of deportation, most of those deportations, in fact, 2/3 of those deported were individuals going to other European countries. They weren't going to those countries that we know are the real driving force behind this problem, the Eritreas, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and so forth. I think, in fact, only about 200 individuals were returned to those countries. So they've been really, with that conversation, throwing up a huge smokescreen to mask some really fundamental problems with the fact that we are really struggling to actually return illegal migrants to countries because they have the ability to make appeals under the ECHR. So again, the Labour Party isn't going anywhere near having the conversation about leaving the ECHR. They think they're going to be able to work with nearly 50 other countries to renegotiate this international agreement. That is pie in the sky thinking if they think they'll be able to get that done. So again, none of these conversation points that the ministers want us to be talking about actually are borne out by the data. And in reality, we are seeing under the surface and behind the PR and the press releases a real problem mounting here. Those individuals that arrived last year will cost us over the course of their lifetime, Migration Watch predicts, about £14 billion. This is a huge fiscal problem. That's before you get onto the social costs.
Yeah, of course, we already know the welfare bill for universal credit is for foreigners, for foreign nationals in the UK, is 10 billion quid a year, which is, I mean, it's obscene by anyone's standards. I will say as well, Labour's claims the people they have deported, I keep describing them because it's the most accurate way of describing them as low-hanging fruit. It's the Vietnamese nail bar workers who does your missus' nails. It's the, OK, fine, they're here illegally, they shouldn't be here, they shouldn't be working illegally, and I'd say probably at worst the Vietnamese are running cannabis grows somewhere. Fine, shouldn't be here. But that is not the priority, Rob, I argue, of British people. It's not the Vietnamese going up to, waging Islamist jihad on the UK or targeting women in a way that we see from some third worlders.
No, that's absolutely right, Ben. And actually, as I just said, those countries that are the problems, we're seeing very little movement in actually removing them. And as the numbers coming across on the channel continue to increase and continue apace, the backlog on those individuals in this country who aren't being removed are still living in the community and amongst us and causing all kinds of havoc. And then, of course, many of those individuals that you referred to that the Labour are boasting about having removed have been paid to go back to their country as well. They've been given support, setting up businesses or welfare support, accommodation, educational training and so forth as well. So this attempt to talk tough when they start using the deportation word is really, really disingenuous. And I think actually it does a lot of damage to the conversation that we need to have, where we realise that we do have a mounting illegal migrant population in this country that do come from those problematic countries that hold completely different values and attitudes, in particular towards women and girls, than the population of Britain at large. So I really think, actually, sadly, we're probably going to see a continuation of what we saw at the end of last year with almost a weekly occurrence of high-profile crimes being committed by those people that the Labour government have let into the country and not removed.
Rob, thank you very much. Happy New Year to you, and we'll catch up soon. Right, joining me now to discuss this is my panel, the former Conservative MP and Minister Mark Field, and the broadcaster and commentator Fahima Mohammed. Happy New Year to you both. Happy New Year, Bob. Well, hope you're feeling as fresh as I am after New Year's Eve last time. Fahima, so arguably, my position is if Labour cannot get a grip of this, and I don't think they will, despite Mike Tapp's insistence today that things will change in 26, at the very least, these people, these illegal migrants from God knows where, we don't know who they are, where they're from, what their intentions are, at the very least, they should be detained somewhere in some sort of, I don't know, prison or, Nightingale-style warehouse and not allowed to roam freely across the streets of Britain. Do you agree with that?
It's not about me agreeing with it. It's about the rule of law. The fact that, immigration, at the end of the day, even if they come here illegally, they are not being prosecuted as criminals because they are under a process. When they are processed...
Until their asylum claim is processed, they should be detained. They're not allowed to roam the streets freely?
Well, again, we don't have the facilities for that. Wherever they're being detained is not being controlled, nor do we have the processes which is fast enough to actually make these decisions quicker. I think the deterrence here isn't about these kind of policies that we've seen. It's about fixing the system itself so that whatever we have in place needs to be a lot faster. We don't even have the judges to make these decisions. Even if you were to leave the ECHR, that's not going to take away those non-agreements and deals that we should have with France and other countries to actually have some sort of returns deal if that is what people want.
So computer says no, we can't do anything about it. They're coming across the channel, Mark, on rubber dinghies from the French equivalent of Tesco, and we can't do anything about it. We can't detain them. We can't do anything. They'll just roam the streets forevermore. They just keep coming.
No, we've got
to pack up and go home.
We've got to do a lot more. Listen, a mess happened under the last government. Let's be brutally honest about it. And I think the difficulty was, and I was always very concerned about it when I was in Parliament, when David Cameron talked about reducing to tens of thousands, and then there was a hostile environment from Theresa May, and then, of course, Rishi Sunak subsequently talked about the idea of stopping the boats. So I think it was absolute madness for Keir Starmer to then say, we're now going to smash the gangs, because he can't control that. A lot of what is happening, obviously, on the other side of the channel. We can't control what's happening with the boats that are coming through. The French, I think, are doing as good a job as they probably can, but, of course, they have very little incentive, dare I say it. If I was a French constituent, I would be taking the view, well, if they want to go to England, let them go to England. And, of course, significant numbers are coming over. There is no control on this matter, and therefore we have to look at obviously doing stuff with the ECHR. I mean, I think there's now almost an agreement on the right of politics that says we've got to pull out of the ECHR. But also, I think in practical terms, if this is a matter of national security, then let's get the Royal Navy involved in this, in the channel, and just try and stop those boats coming through. But if people do come through here, they've got to be dealt with very, very swiftly. And that means, as I say, that I think probably you're suggesting that you have some sort of camp there and people are turned around in double quick time.
I mean, I don't know why they can't be detained. We erected 7 Nightingale hospitals during COVID fairly quickly. They weren't used. Why can't we do the same again? But if we can't do that, Fahima, what about a story doing the rounds a couple of days ago? Why can't we tag these people, these illegal migrants, with electronic tags on their ankles? Then at least we know where they are, and at least, hopefully, it should prove a deterrent for crime. Would you support that?
Because tagging is for criminal convicted.
Well, they broke into the country.
But again,
illegally.
like
they
I
are
said,
illegal migrants.
In the process of actually dealing with their case, they are not considered criminal.
Well, under the
it is a civil. It is a civil matter, not
Nonsense.
a criminal.
What, breaking into a country is a civil matter?
It is regarded as such.
Under the Immigration Act, it is illegal to come into this country by boat, by small boat.
It is, but again, when it comes to the paperwork and the process, and this is UK law, this is not me. People are getting annoyed with left. People are getting annoyed with, you know, whether even in the ECHR.
Okay,
that's not going to stop anything.
What's stopping?
There's not enough tags.
What's stopping? There's not enough tags.
No, and it's for the criminals that are convicted, not for people that are coming here.
Are you saying there's not enough electronic tags?
No,
I'm sure you could produce.
But it's actually a very expensive monitoring process, which I think, again, is not going to be a deterrent. It is there to not actually deal, again, with another sort of like process that we need to see to. We are not tackling this the right way. We are not actually doing this the way in which we need to. The Home Office has a backlog. Okay, we don't have agreements. We are not doing deals with those countries that, you know, could take them back.
The part of the problem here is it's not the issue. I mean, in a way, the boats is a sideshow. It's actually the Home Office and the authorities are not dealing with the other migration. You know, even the so-called legal migration. So you've got significant numbers of people who are waiting for a final decision to be made on their asylum or other case. It takes far too long. So the whole thing has been run on a shambolic basis. But I think one has to look at this as being as an issue of national security now.
Well, it is. It takes politics.
Both on the crime side that has been referred to, and I think Rob Bates.
It's not a national security issue because not all of them are criminals.
No. I'm not suggesting that either. But I think the issue now is serious enough that it needs to be looked at in that light. And I think if you had it in that light, you would have a quick-fire solution to all this.
You say it's not an issue of national security. I mean, if you left your house unlocked and your bedroom door unlocked and you had various strangers walking in and out, OK, maybe not all of them are going to pinch your toaster and rob your TV, or worse, but that is a security issue. We do not know who they are or where they're from.
When they come in, they are having these biometric sort of tests. They are being tagged in a different sense where they are being monitored in the sense that they have to actually, if they are going to be claiming anything when it comes to their benefits or stay or wherever they are, they have to actually, you know, be in contact with the actual authorities. So there is some sort of system there.
We can trust them to do
there is
that.
a surveillance. But you talk about them as in just a blanket collective punishment for all of them because they're coming in a certain way where there are genuine cases and a lot of them are being actually, you know, not just detained because they're criminals, they are here actually being, you know, allowed to stay because they are genuine, you know, seekers. And there is no soft legal route which shows how tough the actual system is in this country. They don't have an option.
I'd argue that's
risk their lives.
I say that's nonsense. They're not. The majority aren't genuine asylum seekers. They're economic migrants. They're from North Africa. There's people fleeing places there is no war at all. You know, let's just be real about it. Let's start 2026 with a little dose of honesty and reality.
Yeah.
The majority of these people are young fighting-age men. They are not fleeing war. And if they are fleeing war, if they are indeed fleeing some war zone somewhere, what does that say about the personnel, the character of that person who's coming into this country where they've left their wives and their children behind at the hands of, I don't know, terrorists or despot regimes, and they flee and come here? I'll just say that. gbnews.com/your say. The government said they're taking action and that the, quote, historic deal with the French means those who arrive on small boats are now being sent back. I'm going to read that one more time because it shocks me. The government say they're taking action and the, quote, historic deal with the French means those who arrive on small boats are now being sent back. There you go. Thank you, panel. After the break, 2025 was characterised by the rise of Reform UK, but do they have what it takes to fix Britain? And I want to know what their big challenges will be in the coming years. Yes, they're riding high in the polls, but what could potentially prove the hurdle in the road for reform? We'll debate that next.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to Farage with me, Ben Leo. Right, 2025 was the year Reform UK went from being a fringe force to the largest party in Britain, both by membership, of course, and it's now topped more than 180 opinion polls. That rise has been driven largely by public anger at a government that's lost control of migration. Small boat crossings continue to surge, as we've just been discussing, and a string, of course, of shocking cases where migrants have been able to abuse human rights laws. But beyond migration, does Reform UK have a programme for governments that can widen their appeal? Well, joining me to discuss this is the political strategist James Frayne, who's penned a rather interesting piece on this today. James, good evening. Happy New Year to you. So Reform UK does get accused of being a one-trick pony, don't they? Migration, small boats. What else is up their sleeve?
Well, I mean, we don't really know at the moment. I mean, as you suggested, Reform have surged almost entirely off the back of very widespread, genuine concern about both illegal immigration and levels of legal migration as well. But they've got to 30-odd points in the polls off the back of public anger over that. The rest of their platform is not terribly clear. They're clearly moving significantly on issues like tax, for example. Historically, they were always a very low tax party. They're always quite tough on welfare, for example. That's changing, so they've become a little softer, if you like, on welfare. They have recently pretty much all but ruled out tax cuts in the next Parliament, looking at the public finances. So people aren't really sure at this moment in time, other than immigration, what really they're going to get from a Reform government.
What can they do to change that perception then, James? Because they've got a couple of years left to go to, well, 3 years. I guess beyond the political assassinations and the inevitable HMRC investigations and all sorts. I mean, look what they're doing now with Farage and the comments he allegedly made, or he denies them as a 17-year-old. Amongst all that, they then have to, of course, get some proper policies out there. So what can we expect from them, do you think? How do they cut through to the public that they're not just a migration-obsessed party?
Well, as you suggested, it's a long time till the next election, probably. There's all sorts of things that might happen. There is everything from, saber rattling by China over Taiwan to potentially more flashpoints on NATO's eastern border with Russia. We really don't know what's going to happen in the next few years. However, every single election has a few issues that really dominate public attention. Healthcare, an obvious one. The economy, as you've just suggested, another one. And Reform need to really build out their policies, particularly on these two issues. They're very, very vulnerable at this point in time on healthcare, particularly. Historically, Nigel Farage has been somewhat critical of the NHS. I think perfectly reasonably very often. But it's not really a message that the public have historically wanted to hear. At some point, we should assume that his political opponents will really savage him on the NHS. They'll accuse Reform of wanting to privatise it or to dismantle it. They need to move very quickly to show that they'll continue to defend the NHS. on the economy. He started to talk a little bit more about it. He started to talk about things like artificial intelligence and future jobs, future technologies, and these sorts of things. But they really need to build out a much more detailed economic policy if they want people to think of them as something other than just the no immigration party.
Yeah. Last question to you, very quickly, if you don't mind. Is reform a one-man band? Is it Nigel Farage or nothing?
At the moment, of course, it's a one-man band. Absolutely, that's not tenable. Farage has talked about unveiling more and more talent, and that needs to happen as quickly as possible because people ultimately won't vote for a one-man band. That's where they are at the moment.
Well, I was going to say, is that necessarily a bad thing? I mean, look in America. President Trump was a one-man band. He said stuff you to the Republican Party and pretty much ran as an independent.
He did, and Farage is a very talented politician, but, the UK system is so different. We're a prime ministerial cabinet-based government. America is a presidential system. It's very, very different. But having Farage as your figurehead at this point in time is really no bad place to start. But they need to broaden out.
James, thanks very much. Appreciate it. Happy New Year. That's James Frayne, the political strategist. My panel are back with me now, Mark and Fahima. Fahima, you voting for Reform UK? Come the local elections in May?
Of course. Whenever I come on, everyone says, vote Reform, like as if to say, that's what's going to be the thing that happens. Me disappear. People like myself disappear if Reform comes in. It is basically a protest politics party which thrives on anger, and their policy is only about immigration, and immigration alone is not going to fix Britain. There is so much more that needs to be discussed. They need to even start retaining their councillors and keep them in order for more than 6 weeks or 6 months would be a great start to begin with. And also all the sort of, things that come out of people that deflect from Conservatives to Reform as well. I don't know, Mark, are you going to do the same? Not sure about that, but,
Well, actually, that's one of my biggest issues with Reform, and I hear it a lot from Reform voters. They are actually quite sick and tired of all these disaffected Tories coming over with their history of infighting. I think people don't want Tory party version too. Well,
I think it's fair to say that it's not just about migration. I think the whole issue around the cost of living has become and a sense of the powerlessness both under the Conservatives with inflation spiking as it did in the aftermath of COVID, but the fact that the Labour Party haven't really been able to get a grip of that. And the headline inflation is one thing. The real inflation for most people is the inflation that comes with going to do their weekly shop. And food inflation still well outstrips inflation levels. I think what I would say about Reform, and I was formerly the MP for the City of London, I think we saw a few months ago Zia Youssef and Richard Tice recant the manifesto which was, a very high spending, but also with tax cuts attached. And they've made it very clear that, as far as they're concerned, that they will look towards reducing tax, but only once public spending is under control, and that's obviously quite a big ask. One thing I've been very struck by, because obviously I still have quite a lot of connections in the City of London, is the open-mindedness of many city folk about what Reform are suggesting. And I think that, as I say, Zia Youssef and Richard Tice have done quite a good job, I think, at beginning to put a platform in place about what they're going to do economically. And there's a level of excitement, rather like it was in the run-up to 1979 with the medium-term economic outlook that was proposed at that point. So, listen, it's going to be a fascinating year. I think this is the pivotal year, 2026, in many ways. By the end of this year, we will be definitely at least halfway through the Parliament, maybe more. But I also think at that stage we will see whether the fragmentation that we've seen in politics, and actually in many ways, of course, Labour suffers not just from Reform at its heels, but also from the Greens. Yes. And Zach Polanski, in many ways, is a mirror image, actually, of Reform as a populist and charismatic politician. And if by the end of this year, Reform and the Greens are still running high, and the Conservatives and Labour are still very depressed in the vote, then it's very difficult. I think for my old party, the Conservatives, the difficulty they face is the brand has been so badly damaged by all that has happened.
Well, Farage says you lot are heading for extinction, the way of the dodo come the May election.
There's no
we'll see. We'll see how that plays out.
I don't think there's any sort of party that's going to completely go completely not existent.
I don't think it's completely not existent, but when they can be viable as a party of government.
Reform is going to be very disappointing because whatever they've even promised, even with regards to immigration, they're not going to be able to perform.
Why not?
It will take more than just a term for what they propose because the law does not allow that to happen straight away.
Do you not think that? I mean, listen, I don't entirely disagree with what you've said. I think a lot of these are very, very difficult issues. But do you not think that the public feel Labour in their 18 months has been a massive disappointment and has failed? Clearly, as I say, the Conservatives, after 4 terms and all the dramas that went on, their brand is going to take time to recover. But do you not think? I think the public out there are looking at reform in a different light, and in the sense that they're not judging them by the same standards. And sometimes politics, like life, isn't entirely fair. But their view is they haven't failed.
Real economics, and people that need things like the NHS not to be privatised. And when you go into the real policies,
it's not going to be privatised. No one's wanted to privatise it. It's been around for 80 years. Have the policies for everyday people that are here. They're just there as a protest party.
Who wants the NHS privatised?
Well, Reform might want to.
They would.
Now, Nigel Farage has spoken about it before. He has mentioned that that's probably the way forward for the NHS.
No, he has suggested a certain amount of insurance, which actually
he wants to
people like Alan Milburn was saying 20 years ago as a Labour minister.
We will not, conform and perform in the same way, and he's trying to mimic, Trump, which will not work here.
All right, well, it'd be good if we could mimic the Trump administration with illegal migration because they've boosted out 2.4 million illegals from the United States in just 12 months since Trump took power. 15 to 25 million illegals flooded in through the southern border in the United States under Joe Biden. President Trump has kicked out 2.4 million in just 1 year, including 600,000 forcible deportations courtesy of ICE, and the rest have been voluntary. So it'd be great if we had a little bit of inspiration back into the Trump admin. Right, thank you, panel. Up next, figures show the poorest households are getting even poorer under Labour. Has Labour lost its claim to be the party of the working class? Back in just a tick.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Plenty of heavy and thundery rain across parts of southern Europe as we go through into the weekend. There's Storm Francis, which is heading towards Spain and Portugal, bringing heavy and thundery rain here. Also some heavy rain across parts of Italy, Slovenia, Hungary, Croatia, and the risk of some significant hill snow building up in parts as well. Into the weekend, well, there will be some dry weather around, but also further rain at times too. I'll see you later.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good evening and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, it's cold out there. We've got cold Arctic air coming down from the north. Snow showers across Scotland with ice and frost throughout this week and into the weekend. So high pressure to the west, low pressure towards the east, and that's what's driving this northerly flow. We've got to watch for this band of rain, sleet and snow across Northern Ireland. That will edge into Wales, into central and southern England as we go through tonight. So there is a Met Office snow and ice warning in force, especially through tomorrow morning with icy stretches possible. Otherwise, a cold night to come, clear skies across northern England, but frequent snow showers still piling in across Scotland. So to start Friday morning then, it's a cold start out there. Frequent snow showers with accumulations building up, especially over higher ground, with still that strong northerly wind. Across Northern Ireland, it's a case first thing with some bright spells, but also some wintry showers. And then towards the south of that, we hold on to this cloud, rain, sleet and snow. Otherwise, as we go through the day, that cloud, rain, sleet and snow will gradually sink its way further southwards. So that leaves actually many of us through Friday with a lovely, fine and settled day. Plenty of winter sunshine, but across Scotland, that's where we still have frequent snow showers, heavy, and there is an amber warning in force, especially across eastern areas of Scotland. So 10 to 20 centimetres further, plus 30 to 40 over the highest routes. As we start Saturday morning, then it's going to be another cold start with icy stretches in places where we've seen any snow showers. But otherwise, the main focus again into Saturday will actually be across north and eastern areas where there is another warning in force. That similar theme into Sunday. It's staying cold with icy stretches and frosts overnight. Bye-bye.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to Farage with me, Ben Leo, just for today. I think it's today. What's the day today? It's Thursday, isn't it? Yeah, just for today. Happy New Year to you, viewers. gbnews.com/you'll say. Thanks for your comments. Georgina, good afternoon, evening. You said, Ben, I love you, but Reform is not a one-man band. Nigel has a brilliant team around him. And Becca, you've said something similar. Ben, you need to come home. You're losing touch with us. Reform is our only hope. Zia, Danny, Layla, Offard now campaigning in Scotland. It's not just Nigel. Mark, thank you for telling Ben. I do think Reform actually is a one-man band. Nigel is the star, but I didn't say I necessarily thought that was a bad thing. In fact, I said to Rob Bates, that's not a bad thing because you look at America, President Trump is a one-man band. The Republican Party probably wouldn't have won last time round if it wasn't for President Trump. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing saying that you have a star of the show like Nigel Farage. And according to most, he is worthy of stardust. Right, let's move on. New figures reveal the UK's poorest households are worse off since Labour took power. And unfortunately, it's set to get even bleaker. Happy New Year, with families across every income bracket facing a fresh squeeze on their finances as higher bills and tax rises bite this year. Mark, is this the final nail in the coffin for the myth that Labour is the party of the working man and woman in Great Britain?
Well, the trouble really is, of course, it's in thrall to its trades union paymasters. And so if you're a public sector worker, then you've done pretty well in the last 18 months because you've had a inflation-busting salary rise.
14 billion quid.
But the poorest, of course, in society either aren't in work or they're in much more chaotic or irregular work and therefore aren't reliant and aren't able to get those sorts of pay rises. And as I was saying earlier on, one of the things that we're not really focusing on is the level of food inflation, which I'm afraid is a lot higher than the 3.6% headline level. And that is making the day-to-day difference. If you're relatively poor, you've got very little discretionary spend, you're spending a lot on food, a lot on transportation and the like, all of which have gone up by inflation busting levels. So yeah, I think it's very, very difficult for the poorest in society. And again, the Labour makes a great play of the idea that these are the people that we're looking after most, whereas the reality is, it's, as I say, it's public sector workers who've done well in the last 18 months in particular.
Yeah, they've done well.
Or relatively well, at least.
£14 billion worth of pay rises. However, yes, Labour haven't helped, but also, by the way, under the Tories during COVID, all across the world actually, they printed insane amounts of money out of thin air, quantitative easing. In the US, they printed a third of their entire US dollar money supply in something like 9 months. And then the Federal Reserve and the Bank of England act all startled like scarecrows when they see inflation ticking up. So you wonder why living standards
do. A lot of this, of course, began at the time of the financial crisis, the money printing, and of course with ultra-low interest rates and the distorting impact that had for many years.
There's other independent evidence, like the Institute for Fiscal Studies, which show that the poorest households have seen almost no real income sort of growth for nearly 20 years. So it depends what you're looking at and where it's coming from. And there is not much difference when it comes to even pre-pandemic sort of studies to show that that sort of level of growth hasn't actually shifted that much. It's not just Labour.
Eamon, that's interesting. So you say after the last 20 years. So I wonder what's happened in Britain over the past 20 years? Maybe a population explosion, courtesy of one Tony Blair, 10 million people in this country, because we are told, constantly fed the myth that immigration is great for the economy, which personally is obviously not true, because GDP per capita, I mean, growth isn't going anywhere anyway under Rachel Reeves, but GDP per capita, which is the truest, most sincere form of individual wealth going, has been contracting for years and years and years, despite immigration going through the roof. So can we agree now, finally, that the myth that immigration is good for the economy is absolutely...
Well, it depends what migrants you've got.
Yeah, exactly. And it depends which sector. It depends, you know...
Well, in our case, the migrants, whoever they are, aren't being very productive because GDP per capita has gone down whilst population has exploded, no?
It depends again, because these kind of studies, they take samples and they take from different sort of like areas. And I think if you look at the country as a whole, we are not struggling economically where the pound is, down or anything like that. People are still coming to visit. We do have quite a huge tourist market still thriving at the moment. And there are certain industries that are really, still doing really well. And at the same time, we've got people that are still investing here from overseas. And immigrants are not just the ones that are also costing the economy. You will find that they are actually making the economy survive and thrive in a lot of ways.
But in fairness, Ben,
foreigners
actually,
own a lot of the UK by far for it to actually be managing right now.
It's also true that the foreign nationals make up £10 billion worth of welfare payments in this country, which is absurd.
But Ben, the issue actually is also about the productivity of our homegrown people over the last 20 years. I mean, we've got 6.5 million adults on out-of-work benefits. We've got over 8 million British citizens.
But I guess that's our problem. They're Brits. That's our... Same with people who say, well, white British people are criminals too. Fine, we've got our own wrong-uns and misfits.
Yeah, but you can't say that if that's a majority of people in this country. Just like with criminals, even when you discuss per capita, yes, there's a huge amount for a small amount of minorities that may be criminals, but the amount of people that are causing crime and they have got a problem, you need to discuss. You can't say that's just our problem, forget about that and just worry about that small percentage that's there. That's why this country is going down in that sense. But if you need to address the ones that are problems, regardless of who they are.
We've got to move on. But point being, if your house is burning down, you don't go and pour more gasoline on the flames.
You certainly are, because you're just ignoring it, because it doesn't matter, because, these are our people. It doesn't work like that either.
OK, all right, we've got to move on. Coming up, Zohan Mamdani has been sworn in as the 111th mayor of New York City. And, by the way, he's the first Muslim mayor in the city's history. He also shunned the Bible, of course he would, because he's a Muslim, and he's the first mayor to take the oath with a Quran. What does this mean for America's largest city? Back in just a tick.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Some breaking news just now. The King Charles, has sent a letter to the Swiss president expressing his deep sorrow at the horrific fire that killed over 40 people in Switzerland last night on New Year's Eve. The King has said the following in a statement. My wife and I were appalled and greatly saddened to learn of the devastating fire last night in Cron, Montana, in Switzerland. It's utterly heartbreaking that a night of celebration for young people and families instead turned into such a nightmarish tragedy. While offering our admiration for the heroic first responders and the selfless emergency services, we wanted, above all, to convey our deepest possible sympathy to all those who have been so dreadfully affected by this horrific disaster. Our most heartfelt thoughts and prayers are with the loved ones of all those who have so tragically lost their lives and with those who remain in a critical condition in hospital. That was a message from His Majesty the King, breaking just now in the past couple of moments for the Swiss people. Moving on, Zohran Mamdani, have you heard his name before? Well, he was sworn in as New York City's first Muslim mayor today with his hand on a Quran instead of a Bible as the clock ticked past midnight on Wednesday evening. It represents the end of an extraordinary journey for the 34-year-old. He's only a young guy who was given a less than 1% chance of being elected when he first announced his candidacy. But how will this self-proclaimed democratic socialist, President Trump calls him a lunatic communist, govern America's largest city? Well, joining me to discuss this is the New York-based former advisor to President Bill Clinton, Jim Kennedy. Jim, thanks for your company. Appreciate it. Happy New Year. Is he a raving far-left lunatic commie, Jim? And what is the concern about Mamdani? Why is he so controversial?
Well, we're going to find out soon enough. You mentioned democratic socialist. The question is he going to lean more democratic or is he going to lean more socialist? If it's the latter, I think it's problematic for New York because socialist policies are proven to be wrong for America and for people. So we'll find out soon enough. I do hope he leans in the other direction, not the socialist one.
Yeah, and he's had some pretty wild ideas, policy ideas. A few, I guess, he's rode back on in recent days and kind of tried to play down. But during the campaign trail, for example, he was talking about government-funded grocery stores, Jim, and, defunding the police at one point. Which policies will we see?
Yeah, there is a lot of problematic policies. The idea of free buses, which I think is a problem, a huge increase in the minimum wage, I think would be a job killer. I think having government-run stores is a bad idea as well. He also has been in favor of perhaps more prostitution, legalizing it, for example. I think that would be a mistake for the city as well. I think New York would be better off the more his policies don't work. He may get stymied in these efforts, and that could be the best result if he isn't able to accomplish what he says he wants to achieve.
Jim, somebody on gbnews.com/yoursay, which is our messaging service here on GB News in the UK, a guy called Mick Cole. Hello, Mick. He said, who gives a toss who the mayor of New York is? Why do British people care? I'd say, Mick, and maybe Jim, you'd agree, that we have pretty similar candidates here, this side of the pond. Maybe Sadiq Khan, who is the current mayor of London, would fall into that category. But most certainly, you maybe wouldn't have heard of him, Jim, is the new Green Party leader, a guy called Zach Polanski. Why does it matter who the mayor of New York is? And what kind of message does it represent about the changing seismic tectonic plates of politics and the West?
Yeah, I mean, I think the mayor of New York always makes a big difference. I think one of his goals should be to focus on New York and not become a global person. I went to the Senate with Hillary Clinton when she first got elected, and we made a point of resisting the siren call of the global press and really hyper-focused on everything related to New York. And I think that was to her success as a senator at that time. He should resist the urge to be a global person and a global media star and really hyper-focus on the problems of New York. I think he would be well suited to do that. I also think as the first Muslim mayor, he could have an opportunity to switch gears and really become an advocate against anti-Semitism. When I worked for Joe Lieberman in the Senate, he was an Orthodox Jewish senator, and he made a point of defending the Bosnian Muslims against attacks from the Serbs. And so that was kind of an interesting leadership example there. I think heretofore, Mamdani has not been very vocal about anti-Semitism. I think he could switch gears and really become an advocate and really make a positive difference in what is a rising scourge around New York and around the world.
Yeah, it was only a few weeks ago that his director of appointments, is one of his new appointees, had to resign in disgrace after old anti-Semitic messages were uncovered. Yeah, and also last time, Jim, I was in New York, I was surrounded by people waving Hezbollah and Hamas flags, but there we go. If he can clean that up, great stuff. Jim Kennedy, thanks for your company tonight, and we'll catch up soon. Thanks very much. Mark Panel are back with me now. Mark, does it matter that New York now has its first ever Muslim mayor swearing the oath on a Quran? What does that mean?
Listen, it's probably right if he is a devout Muslim that he does swear on the Quran rather than on doing it on the Bible. My worry about this is that essentially he wants to be a thorn in the side to Donald Trump, and that's what it's all about. And of course, I mean, he's playing to the gallery. Most people in Manhattan feel that way, and I think what was pretty shocking, given his own views, which are pretty strongly anti-Israel, that 30% of Jewish New Yorkers ended up voting for him. So he obviously got it was a strange election because a previous incumbent had to stand as an independent, and it was many Republicans voted for Andrew Cuomo as a result. My worry is it's just the grandstanding. I mean, he's actually got very few powers, and the worry is his whole manifesto is almost none of it's achievable, and none of it will be achieved. And again, the comparison here with Sadiq Khan here in London, he only really has power over policing and transport. Isn't making a very good job with law and order, or indeed with at least vehicle transport here in London. But he opines about global affairs as if anyone really cared much about his views. So we just shouldn't give him too much of a platform to have these views.
Live pictures now of Mamdani giving his speech in New York. This is live from New York City. Fahima, you must be pleased seeing this, a change in the demographic of US politicians.
It's not about that. It's a demographic vote, OK? This is democracy. People voted for him from all walks of life and all backgrounds, and it was on the sort of policies of affordability. And even, basically swearing an oath on the Quran is not alien to the US, nor is it in the UK. So again, to see that as a threat is like sort of culture war, basis. And I think it's really unnecessary.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying it's necessarily a threat. I just wondered what it means. I mean, does it mean anything?
Of course it does. If you are Christian, you're not going to swear on the Quran. It won't mean anything to you. You'd be wanting to swear on the Bible, just like someone who is Muslim.
But what does it mean that New York has elected its first Muslim mayor?
It shouldn't mean anything. It should mean that that's what democracy is. And if you don't handle...
Mamdani's the one who bangs on about it, saying I'm the first Muslim mayor.
Because that's how people identify each other, with race, religion, and especially if you're Muslim, it's kind of like an thing now, whether you hate it or like it, and it's meant to be, the religion of the world where everyone is like focused on, especially when it comes to something negative. So why not something positive for once?
I'll say Islam is not the religion of the United States or Great Britain.
And the bigger worry is he's not going to deliver very much. I mean, he's made a lot of promises that are undeliverable.
Sorry, Mark, thanks very much.
Lovely to see you, Ben.
Fahima, Happy New Year to you. And viewers, thank you for your company tonight. I'll see you back tomorrow, 3 till 6. Up next is Alex Armstrong with State of the Nation. Good night.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good evening and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, it's cold out there. We've got cold Arctic air coming down from the north. Snow showers across Scotland with ice and frost throughout this week and into the weekend. So high pressure to the west, low pressure towards the east, and that's what's driving this northerly flow. We've got to watch for this band of rain, sleet and snow across Northern Ireland. That will edge into Wales, into central and southern England as we go through tonight. So there is a Met Office snow and ice warning in force, especially through tomorrow morning with icy stretches possible. Otherwise, a cold night to come, clear skies across northern England, but frequent snow showers still piling in across Scotland. So to start Friday morning then, it's a cold start out there. Frequent snow showers with accumulations building up, especially over higher ground, with still that strong northerly wind. Across Northern Ireland, it's a case first thing with some bright spells, but also some wintry showers. And then towards the south of that, we hold on to this cloud, rain, sleet and snow. Otherwise, as we go through the day, that cloud, rain, sleet and snow will gradually sink its way further southwards. So that leaves actually many of us through Friday with a lovely, fine and settled day. Plenty of winter sunshine, but across Scotland, that's where we still have frequent snow showers, heavy, and there is a amber warning in force, especially across eastern areas of Scotland. So 10 to 20 centimetres further, plus 30 to 40 over the highest routes. As we start Saturday morning then, it's going to be another cold start with icy stretches in places where we've seen any snow showers, but otherwise the main focus again into Saturday will actually be across north and eastern areas where there is another warning in force. That similar theme into Sunday, it's staying cold with icy stretches and frosts overnight. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
We want to make the new year your best year yet, with a chance to win our greatest cash prize to date. A simply stunning £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours. Treat the family to that bucket list holiday you've always fancied. Get your dream car you've always wanted. Or just relax, safe in the knowledge that the coming year is on us. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Boom. They are under no